This week on Bros, Bibles, and Beer.
In a world with two Jeffs.
And by the way, that was probably going on while he's preaching fire and brimstone about Jesus coming back to slaughter.
They're searching for a purpose.
Yeah.
There's something greater than me in this world.
Baked into their DNA of how they're just, hey, we are connecting you with like getting older men to help mentor and disciple those young men and be good role models and be good influences in their life.
I thought it was part of an elaborate ED commercial.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bros, Bibles, and Beer. This is Jeff. It's episode 247. Andy, how are you?
God bless this mess.
And bless your knee as well. Zach?
Puff, puff, pass.
Well,
Jeff,
going
what's
crazy.
going on, Jeff?
This is all off the hizzy.
Demons! Oh my gosh. It's okay. We can recover.
We're fine. Everything's fine.
Wait, do it at the same time.
Because we're men. We can recover from this. It's okay. Welcome, listeners and viewers. This is Bros, Bibles, and Beer. We are a podcast who has serious conversations about faith and culture without taking ourselves too seriously. I am Andy McCraw, joined by my good friends Jeff Pearson and Zachary Crater.
That's me.
And if we look like we're trying to keep it together emotionally and mentally, it's because we just had to restart this podcast due to a technical error, but you'll never know that. You'll just have to take our word for it.
I'm going to edit that part out, Andy, that you just said.
Who knows how far down we got into this podcast before we had to hit re-record. Anyway, we're joined by producer Jeff Rogers on the ones and twos.
Jeff 2.
Hello.
There he is.
Electric Boogaloo.
Creeping in the corner. So we now have twice as many Jeffs as typical.
Mr. PBS.
A 100% increase in Jeffs. Yes, and thank you for pointing out that I am an injured soldier, Jeff, with my busted knee.
Well, you're getting old.
I am getting old, and that's what happens. I attempted a 5K at work, and I got partway through it, and then my knee let me know very quickly that I was done.
I've made a huge mistake.
This has been a terrible mistake, and I went limping back to my office, and over the next 2 days, it got worse and worse and worse. So I've got a secret, hidden, maybe not so hidden, brace on my knee right now.
It's like a bad CIA agent.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a pistol next to my kneecap.
Yeah, it looks like I'm carrying a shotgun down here. It's stupid.
That's no pistol, Jeff. Hey, so I got, just to say something super bro-y, a friend of the show, commenter extraordinaire Dave Millsap. We used to play in a band way back in the day, in my early 20s, mid-20s, and we were roommates. We owned a house for a while together. But what he would do is he'd point at my knees, be like, left knee, right knee, weenie, and then he'd slap me in the nuts. And that was pretty fun team building exercise that he did a lot.
Did he know that the testicles and the penis were different?
No, I don't know. We didn't know much back then. We just knew, music and beer,
punching in crotches. Okay, hey, so
why do guys do? There's no girl version of like slapping.
We don't know that
a boob.
It's a mystery.
Girls don't.
Maybe
do
it
that.
is. Who knows? They don't do it around us.
Well, if you're a lady,
yeah, let's know.
Punch each other.
Let us know in the comments if you guys are just straight shots to the ovaries.
And even if it's not that, is there any version of just like grab assery where the guys will just slap each other and it just builds camaraderie? It's a version of the ancient Greeks gripping each other's testicles before they go into battle.
There's no such thing as camaraderie between women.
Did you say camaraderie?
Enough.
Okay.
Enough. Right knee, left knee, weenie.
I got a topic for us tonight, listener.
And we're out of time. Thanks for coming.
So I was sent an article this week by a friend of ours, Mr. Jody Giles, and it's a New York Times article.
Hi, Jody.
And originally he sent it to me because he said, hey, there's Waco, Texas, and Baylor University are both mentioned often in this article. And listener, if you don't know, our daughter goes to our, like we share, my daughter.
We're all supporting her.
Really close.
Yeah, right.
Three dads and a baby.
Yeah.
3 dads and a Baylor girl.
2.5 men.
Wait, which one's the half?
Direction. We're going wrong.
Who's the half?
Who's the half?
Well, you did get hit
the
at a
weenie.
young age.
Yeah, that's true.
Did you lose
Anyway,
part?
so my daughter goes to Baylor University, and
Go Bears.
the topic of the article was pretty interesting because it kind of conflicted with information that I had heard for years and years and years. And here's the gist of it. If you throw that up there on the screen there, thank you, producer Jeff. For the first time in modern American history, young men are now more religious than their female peers. And this is counter to the narrative that I've heard my entire life. Go ahead and go to the next.
I'm sorry, when I see more religious, I really literally do think of people being burned at the stake. But continue on.
That's what the word religious means
I don't
to you?
know. It just because it's bold, it's big.
Oh, the design sent you there?
Yes.
Oh.
Anyway.
That's not what I was expecting when I made that.
More religious.
This is why we don't actually have free will, because he was just changed by the font size.
Yeah, Arial font in bold forced Jeff to think of the puritanical era.
Right.
A whole new world.
That's different.
Oh.
All right. Now here's the counter narrative before we dive into it. That I want you guys to watch in this video, and it's I think it's only about a minute long. We'll just let it go, and I want to get you guys' reaction to this first concept that we've got: more religious men now, young men, than ever before in modern American history versus this.
But there's a problem. Young men can't get the help they need from the church right now, so they're leaving and going to the places where they can instead. Let me explain. Imagine for a second you're a young man. What's the life that you wake up to every day? You're alone. Everybody hates you. They call you trash because they think you're to blame for all of their problems.
She hurts
and they're
me.
always trying to punish you for it. The world thinks it's morally good to treat you like garbage because they think you deserve it. You know, for all the patriarchy you've inflicted on the world. And those ideas are becoming policy now. So you're isolated, under constant attack, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Now imagine you turn to the church for help, and they do next to nothing. They hardly acknowledge those problems exist most of the time, let alone put any boots on the ground to do anything about it. The other day, a friend of mine told me, I feel like everyone is fighting against me, and no one is fighting for me. This guy's a Christian, and he goes to a solid church, but he still feels like there's nobody fighting in his corner.
All right. So you have to like suspend your judgment for a moment because the guy's voice is problematic.
I thought it was part of an elaborate ED commercial.
I thought there was like old MTV videos with the boys in the corner in the darkness of
Yeah, if you
Justin Bieber might have been one of those
spend
guys.
the rest of the episode deconstructing the manipulative aspects of that. I mean, I'm not going to get distracted by that. I see the general point of where it's going, but there's a lot of catastrophication and manipulative words and all that stuff. But go ahead.
The message that he's trying to send here is young men are feeling they're not feeling supported. They're feeling attacked by the world, and when they go to the church for support, with how will you support me? They're not finding support within the church, and so they're turning to this group that you can see on the left: the Rogans, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate.
It's hard to. He's
and
even harder.
Don't know who the guy is.
Who's the guy in the bottom left?
I don't know who that is. Producer Jeff, you know who that is?
I do not.
Okay.
I think it's Turgid John Rack.
You just made that up.
Oh,
Mr. John Rack.
Related to
Bring it.
Gilbers von Duesenberg.
Yeah, I think they're second cousins twice removed. Is that how that works?
Everyone knows about that.
Yep.
Okay, so here we have these two competing ideas. Was there anything in that video though that for you guys that you recognized? Like, was there any of those truths in these kinds of trends? Or would you say you've seen men attacked or masculinity supported or attacked in general in the world today?
Well, I've always talked about this. Like, what happened to men?
Yeah,
because we've gone into social media age, and everybody's glued to their phone. They're being sent a million messages every day, and everybody's just in a blur. So, we lack personal connection. We lack just the idea of like a man going to ask a woman out on a date, in person. And so,
do you see masculinity as something celebrated?
Masculinity has been stripped.
Yeah.
away out of that social media. When you get into the real world, masculinity is back in because now now there's reality. Social media is not reality. So social media has done a really good job of marketing that women are powerful, women are strong, women are independent. You don't need men. Men are weak. Men are the problem. The patriarch's the problem. And women need to take over. Men need to take a back seat. Women need to be paid more, paid equal, paid more, get the jobs, be the CEO. It's happening all over the place. And we've hit the end, I think. But yes, masculinity has been stripped away. The psyche of it. So if you're sitting online on your phone, yes.
But I think you gave some examples that are real, which is like DEI can be an example of that, where there's an intentional balancing in the hiring process that happens. Hey, we need to make sure that we're having equal numbers in who we're hiring, and we'll make decisions based off of sex.
What does DEI stand for?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay, just want to make sure.
3 out of 4 of us are borderline woke.
But my point is just to extend what you're saying. Yes, it does. It is rampant within social media, but it is also bled into practices and policies as well.
Yes.
So one thing that jumped out to me was the individual, the guy referenced, who it's supposed to be a real person. He said he is a Christian friend of his or whatever.
It sounded like he was a
People
real
are
good,
leaving.
extra good friend of his.
Nobody quote
Extra good friend. When I
This
need
guy's a
more friends,
Christian.
I have this extra friend on the side.
I talked to him, extra friend of mine. Why so down?
Have you heard left knee, right knee? All right.
Sounds a little like Napoleon Dynamite. Sounds like Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes.
Nobody is fighting for me was the quote. So this idea of like feeling lost and alone, and if you lack community, and if this person, and we'll just create a fictional version of them, Jeff, you're not wrong when people are buried in their phones. This person is probably buried in their phone. All the examples that were flashed of the anti-man stuff, it's all tweets.
Yeah. Well,
And if that is your world, that can become reality. I agree with you. It's not real life. If you go make eye contact with somebody at the store, it doesn't matter their political views. If you smile and say thank you and please, it's awesome. People are cordial. And so I've often said it's not real life. However, if all your life is actually spent doing that, that will become your reality. And if you don't have real tangible community to be a part of, then you can feel alone. Some of the toxic masculinity stuff ties into this too. And I think more generally on the right, it's the anti-toxic masculinity crowd. We'll just say that. I think that's pretty fair. The reaction against some of the Me Too and the Church Too movements, where there's a lot of advertising pushed towards women being empowered and the men is sort of disempowered. There was one Gillette commercial, I think, where it was examples of guys like mansplaining, slapping a girl on the butt or something,
right,
being inappropriate. It's calling out toxic masculinity. And I know people that interpreted that as they're coming after masculinity in general. And that's where I'm like, are they really coming? Like, there probably are elements that are coming after masculinity, just generally, because men have run the world forever, pretty much, with exceptions.
For good reason.
Rightfully so.
That aside, Jeffs, they're becoming one. This is a problem.
indistinguishable.
We've made a huge mistake. The Jeffs are joining. But the right side almost takes the bait to their detriment, because they're like, see, they hate you. Just take that Gillette commercial. Do you slap girls' asses inappropriately? Do you like talk over women? Do you do all those toxic masculine things? That commercial didn't offend me, because it's like, yeah, this is examples of poor behavior by men. And when the guys take the bait on the other side, we get the overreaction to it, where we need to reclaim it, and it doesn't always happen in a healthy way.
How about I don't disagree with any of the things that you just said there. And maybe to further the point, I can't think of, and maybe this is just based on my own training of the algorithm that I've given. I can't think of any sources on the left that are focused on growing and cultivating and coaching men.
I think that's fair.
Can you think of any?
What do you mean? Like to be good men?
Who is the Jordan Peterson of the left who focuses on calling young men into responsibility and growth and maturity?
I can't remember her name.
Yeah, I
think she has a deep voice though. And her name's Karen.
Okay.
Andy,
it might be there. Maybe I just
Yeah,
am not
I
aware.
want-
There is nobody on the other side.
hold on. If
that's
there
doing
is
that.
and you know about it, let us know.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I would want to know, because when you say that, I can't think of any, and I'm somebody that's not in an echo chamber. I'm trying to hear from multiple voices that I disagree with and some I agree with. And I don't know.
Okay.
So I think that's generally true.
Pull up the next slide here, my friend. Okay.
Can actually
Yes.
can you read that first paragraph, and when it's the quote from Ryan Burge, can we get voiceover Jeff to do that quote?
Oh, yeah. That's a great idea. So for the first time in modern American history, young men are now more religious than their female peers. They attend more services more often and are more likely to identify as religious. Hit it,
We've never seen it before.
said Ryan Burge, an associate professor of political science at Eastern Illinois University. So among Gen Z Christians, this is playing out in a stark way. Men are staying in church and women are leaving at a remarkable clip. Next slide. So specifically, like I'd mentioned before, this is extra meaningful to me because my daughter is going to Baylor University in Waco, Texas, and we've heard of some of these churches. By the way, Waco is like the buckle of the Bible Belt. I mean, it is the buckle of the buckle. It's the crown jewel on the buckle of the Bible Belt.
There's probably an eagle, a cross, and a flag on that buckle.
With 2 guns and a fishing pole.
And a statue of David Koresh.
Yes. So,
Timely reference. I love it.
It's been a while.
People of a certain age will get that reference.
Yes, too soon. So Grace Church in Waco, Texas, they interviewed the pastors and they said they hadn't made any conscious efforts as a church to attract young men, yet its leaders have noticed for several years the young men are outnumbering the young women there. And specifically, they cited one of their small auxiliary they could say it outpost. I thought that was a weird way to call it, but okay. A campus church, I'm going to assume. And 12 to 16 young people that regularly attend are men. And at another church, their Hope Church in Waco, Pastor Phil Barnes said,
We've been talking about it from the beginning.
and he also said,
What's the Lord doing? Why is he sending us all of these young men?
all right, next slide. So we're seeing this trend start to play out. And so here's what it looks like in larger numbers. So the American Survey Center on American Life surveyed 5,000 people, and within Gen Z, 40% of women now describe themselves as religiously unaffiliated, which means I don't go to church. I don't have a faith, a religious faith, compared to only 34% of men. Next slide.
I go to church and I kind of feel like I'm religiously unaffiliated in a weird way. That's a different conversation.
Yeah. So this is connecting to what you were starting to share a little bit earlier. So it's to say that young women are still spiritual and seeking, according to these surveys, but the Gen Z young women grew up during the Me Too movement, which opened up that national conversation about sexual harassment, gender-based abuse, but that also inspired widespread exposure of abuse in the church settings under the hashtag #Church2. Now, Zach, you'd mentioned that you had something that is relevant to something that we'd highlighted recently on one of our episodes. And as you pull it up and share it on the screen, I think you'll have to do that first.
This thing, okay, I will. It's not pausing when I hit pause. Okay, this guy, he was featured on our podcast a little bit. There we go. Fat fingers. Do you feel like your fingers get fatter in your 40s? Steve Lawson, pastor of a large church in Texas, or I don't know if he's the lead pastor anymore, but he is a pastor. We played a clip of him saying, and I quote, I'm having senior moments all over the place technologically wise. Steve Lawson, Jesus isn't coming. He was speaking at ShepCon 24. Jesus isn't coming to save. He's coming to slaughter. He isn't coming to deliver. He's coming to destroy and damn. And that's not directly related to this conversation, just to give you an idea of the theological template he's working with.
Yeah, he's a fire and brimstone guy.
Fire and brimstone. And I have this clip of him addressing a sexually immoral pastor who is unnamed. I do not know who this person is named or what this person's name is. And it's not showing my computer on the share screen now. This is awesome, guys.
Oh, it's not? Okay. Well,
maybe that's God telling us something.
I can reenact it to the best of my remembrance.
I don't believe it.
Okay.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to play the audio.
You are a fool.
Or you can just describe it to me slowly.
You used to have a job.
It's good to hear his words. So I don't have the transcript in front of me, but he's calling out a sexually immoral pastor, and he said, "Hey, you're giving up you now have a day job. You got a paper route. You're a mailman." He's like,
"You used to be a pastor.
You used to be a pastor. You lost it for 15 seconds of pleasure." And I don't know if he's projecting there or if that's. I'll just leave that up to the viewer.
And
to
walked
decide.
away and sacrificed your whole ministry, your whole life for 15 seconds.
And this was a video from the recent past, and now flash forward to today, smash cut to now, Steve Lawson has been fired for an inappropriate relationship with a woman. Actually, I don't know if it was a woman, but I'm assuming a woman.
So he also spent 15 seconds outside of his ministry.
Yeah, he did.
And now he does not
And by
have
the way, that was probably going
life.
on while he's preaching fire and brimstone about Jesus coming back to slaughter.
You would know.
And so, wait, what does that mean?
You're like, it probably was happening during this time. I'm like, yeah, of course.
I am what you say. I say you are.
Yeah.
That's what this is, though. This is an I am what I say you are.
Yeah. And
Not
so
you personally.
But I can't help. I've seen so many examples of this, and it feels like there is a purge going on, especially in Texas. A lot of large Texas churches are losing pastors because, and for good reason, because of inappropriate relationships.
Yeah.
That is where the majority of the churches are in the United
And
States.
best case scenario, it's consensual and it's not abuse, but some of these are going to be abusive situations.
Yeah.
And so when you put that together and this young generation of men and women, the women's side of that, and this is when I shared with Lisa this article that we're jumping off of, before she got to the church do part, she's like, when she just saw women are leaving, she mentioned that without even getting there yet. It's like, maybe it has to do with that. Probably has to do with there's probably a lot of factors.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's all one thing, but a decent part of it is when you are a young woman and you see these pastors stepping down and abusive situations that are happening, you still believe in God. Why would you go to church if that is just drilled into you that is happening? And I don't think the majority of pastors are a problem in this.
Gosh, no.
I am optimistic on that. However, when it does happen, it is the worst thing. And I think this is definitely playing a role in this transfer of men who don't have opportunities, do feel like they're being beaten down in the media, don't have community. They find community, they find security, they find certitude, and like you do have a purpose and it's here and you belong. We can use your gifts.
I agree. Let's go. Let's continue because they start to unpack some of that and give some examples. Go ahead into the next slide there. So I thought this was really interesting. The young men in these surveys place a higher value on traditional family life. This stat blew me away. Childless young men are likelier than childless young women to say they want to become parents someday. by a margin of 12 percentage points, according to a Pew survey last year. That is significant.
So I would say, so these are women who do not have kids yet. They're not married, and they, I think
And
there's
young men.
something in the psychology of it where women don't want to be seen as a failure, and so they're gonna be like, no, I don't want to be a parent. But if it happens, then like, yay! Men are just like, I want to be, I want to be a father. I want to have a wife. I want to have, a family. So I think there's some security, some insecurity that's happening within women that they won't admit that's what they want. But there's a lot of women that cannot find a man and to raise a family with, to get married.
There's been a constantly increasing narrative over the last 40 years, which is success looks like a career for men and for women, and success does not look like raising a family. And so when that message continues to get more and more lopsided, I'm not surprised when I see a stat like that. That it has over time, over 40, 50 years of this progressing, it's going to start impacting people's perception of what is or isn't valuable.
Yeah, and so for good reason, just the empowerment of women to have a career and go to school, get degrees, get high profile jobs, that is a good thing. The reason there's a push for that is because there has been an imbalance, and because of technology, women don't, literally, for a family to survive in the olden days, Jeff, you remember, that was a joke, but in the olden days, literally the wife has the kids, stays home to raise them, the man goes out to get the meat, all that stuff. These things make perfect sense biologically. Now that technology has allowed
biblically
way more, yeah, and part of it is because the Bible is a product of its time. The technology didn't exist for. You don't have to have 20 kids because 17 of them would die, and you had to like run the family household. So now, because of technology, there's way more options available, and this is a good thing. But it's kind of like any tool; there can be a downside of it. It's any technological downside or advance has upsides and downsides. The downside being people are having less kids. And they feel like they don't need to, and they don't on an individual level. If you can go get a degree and have a great career as a woman, awesome. If that's what you want to do, you have the freedom to do that. I got no issues with that. On a systemic level, the more that happens, there's just going to be consequences, and some positive and some negative. And the negative side of it, as you see with some men, is like coupled with, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but there is a larger point. I'm not rambling. What did Trump say I do? I'm weaving. But now I just betrayed derailed my own thought. It'll come back to me.
Okay, so I do agree. I think that the general narrative and the pressure is lopsided for women, and I can imagine, I don't want to put words in their mouth, I can imagine that there can be some internal conflict there. There's a natural, it's built into the biology that women are more nurturing than men are. They are, as in general, this is a generalization, of course, but it's because it's backed up by years and years of evidence that it doesn't feel controversial to say that, right?
Yeah, and I'm not arguing against that.
No. But now you can see when you have a counter narrative that's being elevated almost completely without any secondary like support to it. If the only thing that is valued now is women should be in the workplace.
Go get yours.
Get your career. And that's the thing of value in society.
And women right now are getting degrees at a far bigger clip than
more
men
than
are.
men. Yeah. Okay.
good for those businesses, because that's all this is about, making money.
But there's this pendulum swing. So let's just say the intention being good about, okay, there's this imbalance. Women have the freedom to do things. They can like do stuff now.
Women can do stuff.
They can get, it's like not even that long ago where
they've been marketed to, though.
This is true, but no credit cards, you can't own property, all that stuff. You can't vote. Now, this push to like, let's balance that out. There's no one person that's deciding, okay, now we've achieved balance. Now we stop. Yeah. That's not the way societal pendulum swings work. And so what happened is this is how progress happens. It over swings, then it comes back and it corrects. And you hope that those stock markets, ultimately things are for more people are in a good trajectory, but there are these like wild swings where it is bad for certain people, where it does swing back in a way that is hurtful to men. And I think
and speaking of swinging back, I'm going to swing us back to this article here.
Okay, weird.
Can I address what he's talking about? Because I think 50 and 60-year-old women are marketed and driven.
Going to have babies now?
Driven to the edge, and they're just going to fall off. They're not going to have like socially.
What does that mean? Fall off.
So in terms of like no family, no grandkids, no richness to their life, because they were marketed early on by social media that they need to be powerful and they need to be more independent. And men got stripped of their masculinity in society. I mean, a faux stripping of it. If men want power and they want jobs and they want to take the hill, we can take it at any time. Women don't have that power. They're not built to do that. They're built to get together in groups and connect with friendships. And so we've marketed to a mass amount of people, women in general. And
it sounds like you're saying women are just meant to hang out with each other. No, you said they're just meant to get in groups and be together.
Well, no, they connect that way. But if they're pushed to like, we're going to go run the rat race, which, I mean, go run the rat race of, the corporate world or whatever it might be.
By the way,
all social media has done and the phone has driven us away from the core values of the Bible.
All I want to do is disagree with you,
with
Jeff.
Family.
All I want to do when we talk about gender stuff in the church or otherwise is disagree with you. However, you see the corporate hustle of like, go get it for the guys. Some of the highest suicide rates among men are men in high profile jobs, high stress, the rat race, like achieve. And so, yeah, you can do that now, women, but are you sure you want to? So that's a little wrinkle. That's part of the equation.
Trad wife trend is bucking that. It is going against it. It is like that's what we're seeing more is
the traditional wife.
Yeah. Okay. Pull it back up here. Thank you, Mr. Jeff. Young men at Grace and Hope churches. I thought this was really interesting. I thought this would resonate with you, Jeff, because I've heard you say these things before. This is almost paraphrasing you. These young men are looking for leadership.
Hey, wait a minute. This is a quote. I'm supposed to read these.
Oh. Okay.
Whoa. I
don't want to jump in here, but I have one job.
I thought we had a technical glitch. And I'm like, you got to be kidding.
I have one job. That was a technical glitch.
I forgot he gets paid by the line.
Okay, so we'll edit that out. You start over.
Can you start that sentence over again?
Okay.
The young men at Grace and Hope churches
are looking for leadership. They're looking for clarity. They're looking for meaning.
He added.
There are guys that are just hungry.
Next slide. Oh. So it mentions this young man, Kitron Ferrier. He's a senior at Baylor University in Waco.
Sounds like a name I made up.
Well, he sounds like he's going to be a professional football player. Kitron Ferrier.
Down at the 10-yard line.
What position?
Left out. From which Grace Church draws a sizable portion of their young attendees. So a lot of Baylor students go to Grace Church. Following Jesus is difficult, Mr. Ferrier said.
It's about denying yourself and denying the lust of the flesh.
He said.
Young men are attracted to harder truths
Mr. Ferrier said.
Sometimes, he added, he wants to hear messages with a little wrath of God in them.
Oh my God. Now I got beef.
So I thought this was interesting. The line that he gave there, young men are attracted to harder truths. We don't have Mr. Ferrier in the room. I could see if we could get a hold of him for next week.
What are harder truths?
Yeah. What is that? What does that mean to you when
Don't
you hear
ask that pastor about those 15 seconds.
Oh.
What?
Yikes.
Tonight's episode brought to you by ED.
If you were to venture a guess on what he's referring to, what would you say?
By which,
I'm sorry, I'm so
harder
distracted
truths.
by Jeff's
harder truths.
Men are more
Voice.
attracted to harder truths.
manly voice.
Sorry about that.
I think in the Bible, when it talks about iron sharpening iron, that's probably a good universal truth about, and like when you work out, it hurts. It's hard. It's hard to know how much biceps, but through that pain, you grow. Literally, your muscles grow. And spiritually, emotionally, intellectually,
confession,
challenging yourself.
I think confession, I think accountability, like those kinds of things.
Knowing there's something more for you. If you're wandering in the wilderness, you need some structure to build a life upon. And so what he's referencing is if you go to a lot of these churches, especially the ones that preach a little bit of wrath and judgment, it's like, you know, the ins and the outs, you know, the boxes, it's clean, it's safe, and you can build a community, and you have people there that think the way you do and that are drawn to the same thing.
Jeff, pull up that slide again there. And the section that he says right here in the middle, where it's about denying yourself, denying the lust of the flesh, I think that's a piece of what he's describing as these harder truths, which is, hey, there's part.
It's a little too hard.
There's part of you. It's impossible.
But there's a desire that men want to overcome, want to like kind of follow the straight and narrow.
There's a version of the church morning that says it's all about grace and Jesus just meeting you where you're at, and don't worry as much about changing from who you are into being more and better, and being the better version of the person that Jesus wants you to be. There's a version of that.
The softest version of a sort of a prosperity-ish gospel would fall into that.
Yeah, the most seeker-friendly of seeker-friendly churches, like seeking not to offend. And what I think he's saying here is like young men are attracted to, and I think Jordan Peterson is an example of this as well, where he's calling them into responsibility and maturity. Hey, you need to be better than you are today. Tomorrow you need to be better than that.
Because if you're a young dude, and this is not a joke, but there's no joke. If you're a young guy like him, and I'm not talking about him specifically, and you don't have a community, you don't have your people, and you're just on your phone all the time, like, and you've masturbated 3 times during the day, and it's like, is this life? And so the lustful part, or the denying the flesh, or whatever that quote was, I think it's a large part of it, because it's when you're young and your testosterone is firing and you don't have a community, maybe you don't have a job, you're lost.
There's a lack of purpose.
Hey, I can look at my screen and find some version of love,
Right.
temporarily.
Sure.
15 seconds, according to Steve Lawson. But then eventually that just feels soul-sucking and soulless. And it's like, is this all there is to life?
It's directionless. And I think
part of what young men coming back into the church is a part of that. They're searching for a purpose.
Yeah.
There's something greater than me in this world. And so they are really searching at that age bracket. And I think that's the swing. And whereas women, and I was looking up some of the where you got your article from, that the people who created that, one of them he started the Pew Research, and they did a big survey on on women and men leaving kind of conservatism, and a lot of women going to the liberal side politically. But if you look at the two articles, they almost are right in line. Women are moving out of the church and going liberal, and conservative is thought of as a Republican, Christian, Catholic, Judeo-Christian, kind of. That's the side. You wouldn't be ultra liberal woman and be a devout Christian in general. I mean, there are, but you're not going to have a side. So I think the like 25, 30-year-old woman has left the church that went in the liberal way and in political beliefs and ideologies. And also they're like, I'm going away from the church because, my beliefs don't line up with that. And it went from like 16% to 30% to now like 50% of younger women turned liberal over the last 20 years. It's started happening right around the end of Barack Obama's first term, and it just goes downward. And then as Trump comes back as Trump comes back in, the people start coming back to church. There's this small increase from women, and then the pandemic hits, and then it's just a landslide down.
All right, let's go to the next one.
There's so many genuinely good guys that are just literally always here for you.
Said Andrew Parks.
Was I too soon on that?
Jeff's voice feels like he's shitting on my article.
No, he's just changing his voice slightly for every quote, which I appreciate.
Okay, said Andrew Parks, who has attended Grace for several years. Andrew would like to get married and have children someday. First, he wants to get a job where he earns enough to support a family.
I want to be the sole provider if that's what she wants.
Said.
But
has no problem with his wife working outside the home. But that's not a quote.
That's not a quote. You
it's
messed
highlighted.
Up. That was
Start over.
That was a test, and you failed.
I failed. I'm out.
You are fired.
You are fired.
Now
You just
out.
got fired. All
no
right.
more reading.
So I think what you're seeing here is like what you described, the increase in traditional values being seen a resurgence within these young men, and they're trying to find other women, or they're trying to find women who share those traditional values as well and care about that. All right, let's go to the next one. So this part is something that when Lindsay, my wife, read the article as well, and she mentioned this piece of it too. So you don't have to quote this one. It's in a lady voice, Jeff, so don't worry.
I can do it.
Zach,
Let's get Jeff fired, actually.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I prefer that you didn't. So yeah, but
I caught that, Jeff. I heard that.
One of the professors at Baylor University had mentioned that that the complementarian turn within some of these churches has reduced the visibility of women in the church. By the way, complementarian is not saying that we're
saying how nice they look.
Good job.
You look really nice today.
Yeah. It's not compliments. Complementarian
so yin and yang.
effectively is saying that that women cannot be in positions of leadership within the church.
Know your roles.
And so I think it does fuel what you've been describing, which is if there's an increase or at least awareness of it, that that complementarianism exists within the church from that generation, that is turning women off. They're pulling away from the churches. And so, but this is what's crazy. Look at this next line, right? So that's opening more official roles to women, though may not necessarily win them back. Many of the largest liberal denominations that ordain women are in steep decline. I wonder what's going on with that. It's basically saying that you have women who are
Seems normal to me.
leaving churches to go to these liberal denominations, theoretically, because they're non-complementarian and they're giving leadership positions to women. However, those churches are declining steeply.
Because when they have one argument, all the friendships end and they disappear.
Oh my gosh.
What would be
There is truth to that.
I have a
Jeff
question.
Pearson at Bros Bibles Beer.
No, hold on.
No,
I got-
this
I got-
is our podcast.
I got a question.
You don't
I
have
know.
to say that.
And
What do you mean? We always say that. We say that every single episode.
Don't say it anymore.
anytime
I will always
I
say it.
request that you don't say it.
hey,
Request denied.
so we'll just submit it to corporate and wait for their response. So Jeff, if you were to steelman that, like, what's the most charitable reason for that happening, as opposed to what you just said?
Women leaving and going.
Yeah, are there possibly other reasons besides what you just said that might be happening?
I mean, I know of a few people that I could see or maybe have left the church and gone somewhere else, and then like, it doesn't work. And I literally say it's because they couldn't find friendships.
That's a big one.
That would be number one. I mean, women are built on friendships and being completely connected. If they're not connected, peace out. Whereas,
What do friendships have to do with leadership positions, though?
so women leaving a church where they don't allow that, going to a church where they do,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Doesn't matter if it's a woman in leadership. If she doesn't have connection with her congregation, the people that are there, then she's going to leave. It's going to fall apart. And plus, you can only be at a church so long where you're listening to a woman preach on the Bible where you're like, I need a man's touch here.
How long have you gone to a church where a woman has been preaching before you required a man's touch?
Well, I'm talking about the women that go to these churches.
Exactly when did you need the man to touch you?
Point to me, point on me,
Point on
touch
Zach.
me where
Is this where we talk about our 15 seconds out of
Touch
ministry?
Zach where you
Where
would
you
like
were
to
hurt.
be, where you were
Touch
touched.
the doll.
Touch points up.
This is
I think
really going downhill.
I think part of it is security.
How about I give you an example so we don't have to guess what other people might be thinking? We left a church that was heavily complementarian. It was not the only reason. There were other reasons why we left that church, but there was a statement: we will never have a woman in leadership at our church.
Mm-hmm.
And for our family, we went, boy, that laying down that hard stance amongst some other data points for us was like, maybe this isn't the place for us.
Why?
Because
Why would that?
I believe that women can have great things to offer in positions of leadership. I don't believe it has to be a binary.
In and out of the church.
Sure.
Both.
I believe it's totally possible. I believe it does happen.
And I think there's a lot going on here. Some of it is biological. I think increased testosterone, like people that naturally like take control or are a little bit more aggressive, are more leadership oriented in just the classical way, just the traditional way. And so in general, women may not be prone to want that position.
Yeah.
But not all women are like that. So there are some women that have, whether it's higher testosterone on the spectrum of female or not, whatever the reason, I think there will be, so to disagree with some of the left people that think that we can have equity in all things, it never works that way. There will be women that have leadership skills, and I don't think society should stifle that necessarily. And, but in general, men are going to be driven towards more of those roles. Like, why do no women want to become garbage disposal people or people that take out the trash or whatever? There's plenty of industries that are dominated by men.
Because nobody's going to want to be their friend.
Where it's because of the smell. You're probably right.
Like, you're a garbage bin. Hey, man, let's watch the football game. That's a man thing.
But some of this stuff is...
You go to a church that has women in leadership.
Yeah.
And have gone to a church that has women in leadership.
I love listening to the women sing.
Just not when they talk. And if that's where you're at.
I prefer listening to a man lead at the pulpit.
And that's fine. But what I was thinking about, we can get back to that. But why these churches aren't growing or whatever. There's safety in clean lines. Who's in, who's out. We know where we stand on every issue. And so naturally, more conservative churches grow better than more liberal churches because there's clean delineations. The liberal person that leaves a conservative church, maybe they'll check out a few liberal churches, but they're already burnt out on church in general. And it's like, yeah, maybe I'll check this place out that's more accepting. It's not hard to see that they might leave easier and just like check out of church altogether if you've been burnt out by conservative churches, which I think a large percentage of these women leaving the conservative church, it's going to be the case. I mean, it's the case with me in my deconstruction. I'm not a woman, even though you made that joke. I can do a great female impression, but
we can agree that when there are clear lines, when there's a box that our church fits in this box, like this is the Bible, there is no getting out of this. It's like this is black and white. There's much more success within churches, Catholic Church, Christian Church, within many religions in general. If you're outside of that and you're just like anything goes, you have less success because it's kind of an open palm
people don't
thing.
know, because in an anything goes environment, each person is coming with their thing is the most important, but they're all going to be more different. And so it's like, okay, anything goes, but that's not my thing. And so you're more prone to less growth. And plus, there really is a fight or flight thing going on where right now, it is so crazy and confusing in the world. We are in the weirdest timeline in so many ways. And so people are drawn towards
polarization,
finding a place where they know what is right and what is wrong, what's up and what's down. There's no questions.
Yeah, and
it's self-selecting.
Technology is wired to drive us towards polar feelings on things. Nothing in between. Black or white, A or B, red or blue. Those are your options. You don't have any subtlety. There's no nuance. Now, we go to a church that was founded on the idea of being of centered set theology, which is to say we're not drawing these hard borders. We're drawing the center of it, which is to say we follow Jesus, and we recognize that that's the commonality that we want to draw everybody to. We don't pretend to think that we're going to get everybody else in the room to align on all of these other topics. There's no way. And by the way, those hard border, what's it called? Bounded set theology. I would be willing to bet if we could somehow get into people's brains and have direct knowledge of what they thought and where they landed on all these topics, they would realize that the room is way more split than people may verbalize. That's my theory.
Because it wouldn't be a safe place necessarily for somebody that maybe is outside the box on a couple of things to speak up, because they'd be like, well, you can't check our theological boxes, so you have to leave.
And so we recognize that at our church, that puts us in a tough spot. Like you were saying, I think it is easier for some churches to grow when they draw these hard lines, because I think it can feel safer to somebody who's trying to figure out where they should go. So instead of offering some questions, you're only offering answers. And so that can be like, great, I don't have to think about this anymore. I was looking for X, you do X, you believe X, great.
But I love the fact that somebody like Jeff is at a church, and there are plenty of people there that lean towards that angle of like, yeah, I don't prefer a woman because I'm not sure where I stand on that, or I'm not in that spot theologically, but you still believe in the heart of the community at large, and so you're there. And there's plenty of people that are, further left than I am theologically, and these categories are lame, but they matter
Sure.
for a certain degree. But so I'm left of you theologically, but there's people there at church that are probably further than me, but we're at this watering hole together because you can't, people don't change by saying, hey, this is the right answer, you need to change. That's not how people change. People need an opportunity to grow and learn from each other. And that's why the centered set thing that's why I'm still at church. Because if it wasn't like that, I'm gone, and I don't know if I would go church hunting for a long time.
I guess the idea of what you said about, we learn from each other. It's like, well, we're supposed to be learning from the Bible and Jesus. And so those conversations of learning from each other better be from that than elsewhere. And so that's why people have come to our church and left and gone somewhere else where they find, like, wait, you don't believe in this and this and this? Yeah, I'm out of here, because that's a little wishy-washy for me. And so,
Good.
you know, it's and sometimes I think about it. What's our rest or
Home for the wanderer, rest for the weary.
Yeah, home for the
restoration
wanderer,
of all things.
Yeah, home for the wanderer, rest for the weary. It's like maybe people that were all at these other churches, they're just like, it's just maybe too difficult to do this, or I got just worn out, or I got burned, or, you know, I kind of, you know, had other thoughts. And so now, you know, I need somewhere to rest and just be accepted. And so that's what our church is in many regards.
I think there's some of that. I think there's definitely lots of people who've come here because they've been burned out by other churches.
Sure.
For sure.
There are,
and
definitely.
They've felt like church became a job for them, and religion became oppressive and only gave them negative feelings about themselves and their lives.
The most successful of all at pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, the Mormons absolutely crushed everybody. And they are in a very hard line of how they function. Do people get burned? Yes, they do. Within, you know, Christianity, Catholicism, the umbrella of it, Mormonism, but they came, regardless of their beliefs, they're a hard line on a lot, and they stick to it.
There's not a lot of variance regardless of their beliefs. There's not a lot of variance. By the way, you said it.
Until they invest in Pepsi, and then caffeine's okay.
Mormons
in the church. All right, let's go to the next slide.
I don't just, and also the more conservative churches around us did grow because they like, hey, we're charging forward. We're not no compromise, and so
go ahead, Jeff.
That was growth.
So this is interesting. I'll just read it out loud.
Don't plant that in my head. Let me decide if it's interesting, Andy.
Almost 3 in 10 Gen Z women identify as belonging to the LGBTQ plus community. 30%. So this is Miss Clark, who's being
go
quoted.
ahead. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, hold on. Shut up. Let me just finish real quick. The person who's going to be quoted is a graduate student at Baylor University. And I had to trim down the article. I'm not going to give the whole thing. So just a quick backstory. She's a graduate student at Baylor University. Go ahead, Jeff.
I have to do a woman voice for this?
No, not necessarily. Probably
I can't go to a place of worship and know that the person next to me thinks that gay people are going to burn in hell.
So Miss Clark says,
I still believe in God and Jesus and all that. I just struggle to call myself a Christian.
So the surveys say that her situation is common. They score higher than men on these measures of spirituality and attachment to God, but they're exiting traditional faith practice.
So I identify with that. I'd love to have a conversation with her. If being a Christian looks like Stephen Lawson, if that's what a Christian is, are you a Christian? I'm not talking about being perfect. That quote I read about Jesus slaughtering his enemies. The Prince of Peace comes back, there's going to be hell to pay. I'm paraphrasing a Father John Misty lyric. Is that a Christian? And if that's a Christian, I'm out. I'm not a Christian. Doesn't mean I don't believe in God or Jesus, and I don't want to love like Jesus loved. But I think that's what she's saying. and or at least I might be projecting because I'm there. That's where I'm at right now.
Do we have his secession papers?
He's on the couch.
That's right.
We put him on the couch
We should have
for a reason.
a label right here.
Yeah.
Apostate.
Texas?
Make sure you spell that right. Not a prostate. Apostate.
Apostate, apostate, apostate.
Left knee, right knee, wee knee.
Well, I almost you had it.
So
You
sorry.
had the
I'm so
opportunity.
sorry, listener. You came here for interesting conversations, and this is what you got.
But when people,
Dick
so
jokes.
if all you know, in this person's case, what a Christian is somebody who hates gay people, and God's gonna judge them and destroy them
I think we're
forever.
obviously
That's another marketing ploy.
right. We're cherry picking I cherry picked one section out of there, but I think it's good because it's a useful example for us to react to, where you're seeing someone who's saying, okay, there's a part of the church that I'm reacting to that felt like it turned me off to organized religion. And if this is what the organized religion of Christianity looks like, I don't feel like being a part of that. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I don't align with that. Now, the challenge comes, at what point do you draw the line? And are you actually no longer a Christian in the best, most biblical definition of the word? At some point, if you decline enough of the things, then you can no longer say I believe in what the Bible would describe as Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say I
at
believe,
some point.
but this is where it gets hairy.
It's all right. We like hairy.
Okay.
Sometimes you just need a man's touch, and some men are hairy. These days, men are less hairy, but that's okay. Do you guys remember
They're trying to be more
when
like
the
women.
leading man in a movie was not super buff, like maybe it's like fit, a little bit of dad bod,
Charles Bronson.
super hairy?
Charles Bronson.
Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck
Both
is who
those-
I was thinking of.
Oh yeah, he wore a sweater
Dude,
with his shirt off.
he wore a sweater under a sweater sometimes. Early James Bond,
Oh yeah.
just sort of doughy. Different times. Now everyone's
Yeah.
hairless and like totally ripped. And I'm not sure that's a good thing.
And
All
less of a man.
Maybe.
But you guys talk. I'm going to look up a Bible verse so we can put the
We're at
Bible
the,
in
we're at the
Brisbane.
very
Whoa.
end here. Go to the next slide, the last one for me. I think this is the last one. Yep, that was it. So here, the things that I think, let's summarize real quick. What we're seeing here is a resurgence of Gen Z young men coming to the church. I love that.
Amen.
I thought of your son
Amen.
immediately when I read this, and the awesome stuff that he is doing. He is like diving in deeper, it feels like, into our church in positions of leadership. I
Mhm.
feel like he is supporting and inspiring other young men. He like shared some story with us the other day with
That'd be great.
going down to, they just went down to the beach to hang out, and he's like, we didn't really have like an official Bible study. We just want to like go down and talk about Jesus for a while.
That's life, baby.
Yeah. And
Amen
I'm like,
to that.
that's great. And he's volunteering and he's serving. And there is, I feel like there's a group of young men like him that are starting to form. We're seeing this trend, I think, in our own lives, in our own church.
The hope is that that's happening in thousands of other areas of this country, of the world, and those young men,
Yeah.
it grows exponentially, and there's a gravitational force to that. And that's the hope. And
That's what
there's-
it implies. That's what this article, the surveys are implying, that this is a thing. And so I want to figure out, like, how do I, as someone who's clearly not in Gen Z at all anymore, like I used to be. I've got a Benjamin Button's disease, you guys. I'm growing backwards. Like, how do we help support that? What are the things that we can do to add fuel to that fire instead of the reverse of squashing it and throwing a blanket on it?
I mean, opening doors for people you see doing good things within the church, just in the community, you're going to open up the door for those people, whether it's, church or city council or anything like that, where those people are going to, they have a gravitational pull towards them. And I, in terms of supporting it, just, what do you need? And could I sit down with you? What's going on in your world? And I just like to hear about it. Just to hear the stories are a huge thing.
Yeah, I think that
because we're passing a torch to the younger people, and to let them know, because a torch got passed to me early on in my Christian life, and I'm like, that just was fuel that burned to pass that on to others. And I've seen those people go and do the same thing, but
you needed someone pouring into you.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a perfect use of that Christianese phrase, Andy. Perfect.
Pouring in. It's true though. And that's the thing that
that's the richness of the life we live.
Some churches are
There's the mentorship.
Some churches are really, really good at that. It's like baked into their DNA of how they're just, hey, we are connecting you with like getting older men to help mentor and disciple, grow those young men up and be good role models and be good influences in their life. And I love seeing this article that those guys are like, seem like they're attracted to this idea of like, okay, hey, I'm willing to grow up. I'm willing to look at these harder truths and be challenged to be more than I am today. That's good. All right. You going to put the Bibles in the Bros, Bibles and Beer?
1 Timothy 4:10, Jesus is the Savior of the world, especially those who believe. Now, I'm going to make a mountain out of a molehill, and the molehill is just a single verse. I know it's out of context and all that stuff. But the idea of Jesus saving the world, especially those who believe, I think there's a place for those who are wandering and maybe lose belief and stuff. I think the idea of God working to restore and reconcile the restoration of all things is a reality that we live in. And the problem is, not the problem, but going back to that gentleman's quote where he wants a little wrath of God, he wants a little judgment, because all he knows is like, I don't know where I stand on anything. I don't know where I can put my feet. I haven't got my sea legs. And so you gravitate towards a perverse, potentially, I'm not saying that church he's going to is perverse, but potentially in the Andrew Tates and some of the more hyper-masculine manosphere of the online space, gravitate towards the safety of that community. And that's not good either. So, but even if you venture outside the lines of what it means to follow Jesus, whatever that means in reality and whatever that means to the individual listening or watching, Jesus and God, the Christ working to restore all things, I think is a good encapsulation of Jesus saves all, especially those who believe. And I don't entirely know what the writer of that verse meant exactly with that, but there's plenty of other areas in the Bible that talk about as in Adam all die, as in Christ all will be made alive. And I think that needs to be held, or it would be helpful if you hold that intention as you navigate life and you butt up against beliefs that seem to be destructive and counter to what you know. The body of Christ is diverse and communities are diverse. That woman you described, the 60s plus woman, that she got it all. She got her career and all that stuff. But if you don't have community, you're going to be lost. You need community. And so whether that's community found in a church or community found in some other group or just making friends on the outside, people need community. They need connection. And I guess that's my summary, is like, if you're lost, find your community. And is it bringing life to you? And if it's bringing life to you and the people around you, but also it's doing harm to others around you, it might not be the right community.
Right. So connected to this, but to go full circle, we started off like how there are men going into the church looking for help and they're not getting help. and they're finding it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that comes back to being aware and pouring into people, just connecting.
Yeah.
And reaching out to people that you're uncomfortable talking to, a stranger, whatever. Like, I'm older than I was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, that age bracket seemed a little bit easier to feel more comfortable to go up to people. Now I'm looking at a 32-year-old with a 3-year-old and the 1-year-old and his wife there, and they're pushing the stroller, and I'm like, I'm going to regret not going up to these people, and I'm not going up to them. Why? Oh, I don't feel like, at least in this moment, I don't feel, ultimately, I'm going against really what I should be doing, which is going up and just being the hands and feet of Jesus and be like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
And so that's the one thing you can start by doing, is just connecting with people. And then eventually, I mean, you're literally you are pouring into those lives because they're like, hey, that guy was pretty nice.
Did hearing what some of those young men were like striving after and looking for, did that help change or influence your kind of perception of your own?
I'm sorry, which
the young men in that article who are saying like, here are the things that I'm looking for. They're striving for clarity. They're looking for leadership. They're looking for more.
Like, I go to a church. It's not like I need to take something from this church, but it's like, what is there here? I thought there would be some. It's supposed to be friendly community that, bring you in and be like, hey, how's it going? Be like, what would Jesus do? He wouldn't just let you walk on by.
But does that change? Does that influence how you're like before? If you're like you were describing before, I'd look at him and go, I would paraphrase your statement to say something like, oh, what do I have in common with this 30 or 2-year-old kid? They don't want to hear from me. And maybe what this is saying is like, oh, they could only hope but to hear from you. They're waiting to hear from you.
Yes. That is a definitive yes. Anybody showing up at the church is hoping to connect.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is hoping to connect.
Dude, we need you at the front door.
I don't want to be at the front door.
We need you.
No,
there.
that's a bad place because I'm stuck then at the front door. If you want a front door person, I'm going to connect with somebody, and then there's going to be no more front door person.
We lost
As my
Jeff.
wife would say, where did he go? He's probably somewhere talking to somebody.
Is Jeff-
I don't have anyone in the front door anymore.
You more of a backdoor man?
Oh, is that a Doors reference, or hopefully not something else?
I'll just leave it up to you.
Okay.
All right. Hey, this was a fun episode. Thanks for sitting through what I thought was an interesting concept.
I got more.
I know. I
got more.
We'll be back for part 2.
Yeah. We could part 2 this sometime in the
Please.
future.
Well, part 2
it's not going away.
We'll part 2 it next week.
But
Part 2 it
find
next
your
week.
people, and if you have people, look for the people that are on the periphery and bring them into your people. People need people.
Yeah, we're going to get back next week, and we're going to talk about how many people Zach wrangled up.
I'm terrible at it.
I know. That's why it's a good challenge.
But you're not terrible at it.
Yeah, but that's why it's a good challenge.
So 10 of yours is worth 1 of his. So that's the trade.
We're going 3. Wait a second.
But
this is the trade value.
The beauty of the body of the Christ is diversity and diversity of skill sets. You don't have to be good at all the things Jeff is good at, and the things that I'm good at, which they're there somewhere. You don't have to be good at those things. So yeah, this isn't like, I love the idea of.
I'm kidding.
We've done this before.
I'm kidding,
though.
but I will have a tally sheet next week.
And that's a skill set of yours.
How many hands? Okay.
I made a spreadsheet.
Wait.
Listen, guys, I know who
How
won.
many hands you could shake of people you don't know? Keep it at that. Hey, how's it going? And it could just be 1 second, but you gave them the man touch.
I've already lost. The fact that you just said man touch, I'm like, you've just been touched by a man. Welcome. Can you imagine that? Welcome to the church. You've been touched by a man. How would you rate this man touch?
May I offer you my man touch?
Dude, that is a real thing. The whole out of the Me Too and Church Too stuff, the culture of consent that just can get really weird. Like, is it okay for me to sit next to you? Or like that? It's ruined dating. And I wouldn't know because I don't need to date, thank God. But I've heard so many people talk about like, I don't even know what's what.
I kissed dating goodbye.
Nice.
So did you.
It's
All right.
ruined guys'
So did you.
psyche and
Well, let's
dating.
get out of here. Let's not worry about
Yeah.
feedback or whatever and all that stuff. But send it in. We'll read it at some point.
Yeah, send it in. Thank you for thanks for tuning in, and please definitely like, subscribe. It genuinely does help the channel grow, and by that we mean it helps us be able to get more views. The algorithm loves it when you like, subscribe, and the comments are our favorite thing. We didn't read any tonight, but we will, and we will always for the future. It's been one of our favorite things about YouTube is the fact that we're getting these comments and we get to interact with you as our listeners and viewers. Anything else?
Well,
Jeff, can I get some more water?
we all got blind spots. So,
On
hey,
it.
but also Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you can give us 5 stars or less, and you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
so-
we end it every single time by saying, if you liked what you heard today, please let at least one other friend know. Just share this podcast.
or
I think.
tell a friend how shitty we are.
Or yeah. If,
You know?
if it's even better to be like, I disagreed with every single thing
I hated him. You
that
should probably
Zach
listen.
said. Yeah. If you hated it, share it too. Hate shares are our favorite.
And if you're a Karen liberal Christian, I want to have coffee with you.
I'm right here. Let's get coffee.
Shoot.
Want to get coffee? What time?
All right. For Jeff, Zach, I'm Andy. This is Bros, Bibles, and Beer. Grace,
Peace.
Cheers.
And Jeff Rogers.
and Jeff Rogers.
What? In a world
With 2 Jeffs.
with 2 Jeffs,
God, it's so
Wait,
hot
do
in
that
here
again.
right now.
Do that
the
again clean.
earth split apart.
Hold on. I want that clean.
In a world with 2 Jeffs, one man brought destiny to the table.
2 men.
A girl,
One Jeff.
2 girls, now more than ever.
2 balls coming out of a testicle. 1 Jeff left, 1 Jeff right.
Two Jeffsticles.
There's our Easter egg at the end.
Please tell me we're still recording.
Oh yeah, we got it.